The following discussion is not necessarily the views of all involved. The goal is to start open and honest discussion in the Christian worldview. Like all things, weigh what you hear with what you know and join us in our pursuit for the truth. Enjoy the podcast.
If I get shut down by the Freemasons, I'm going to wear that as a badge of honor, not as a shame. I've seen more schizo posting by you quoting other people than I have just normal schizos. Yeah, that's fair. So I'm going to bring up that fog machines are representative of the infilling of the temple.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Second Rate Saints podcast. I'm one of your hosts here, Caleb. To my left is
Joshua, and to my left is
I'm Joel, and to my left,
I'm Colton, and to my left,
it's me, Caleb. We've gone full circle. Sadly, we are missing Stuart. That's as per the norm, but the show must go on. Joel,
yeah,
what do we do on the internet?
Yeah, if you want to find pretty much everything that we're putting out online, go to secondраtesaints.com to check out our weekly episodes, our blog posts, our book reviews, and anything else that we might be greenlighting the next little while. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us at secondраtesaints@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube or chat feature on our website. Yeah, look forward to hearing from you, especially with this episode. If you'd like to support Second Rate Saints financially, our growth, and kind of our upgrading our sound stuff, check out buymeacoffee.com/secondраtesaints, or there's also a link on our website to that Buy Me a Coffee thing, which is just if you want to make a small one-time donation or a monthly donation. Yeah, check it out.
Really helps us out.
Yeah.
Josh, you've been known to read books.
I have.
Tell me, you've finished a book that we were reading kind of alongside each other. What is it?
It's called Typology, Understanding the Bible's Promise-Shaped Patterns, How Old Testament Expectations Are Fulfilled in Christ, by James M. Hamilton Jr.
Awesome.
I know that guy.
It is a phenomenal book. We've covered one of his books before, which was his small biblical theology book.
Yeah, in the Short Studies of Biblical Theology by Crossway.
Which one?
No, his is How to Do Biblical Theology. Like it has the apple on the front.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Understanding
that was
biblical
him?
theology.
Understanding Biblical Theology.
That's right. Doesn't he write one of the Short Studies in Biblical Theology?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we may not have covered it yet.
No.
Okay.
Anyways, so he goes through typology in the Bible. And a typology is when you have an initial character or institution or, what's the terms?
Here, I'll read.
Sorry. When you have,
Okay.
1 second. When you have a person, an event, or an institution that has versions of itself laid over the whole arc of the Bible.
Monkey sees pattern.
Basically, yeah.
Yes, but he argues it's not just a pattern, it's intended. And so it is how the Bible presents Christ in the Old Testament and then going into the New Testament, new creation.
Right.
And it's not prophecy, it's pattern. And so it's like an object lesson. So what you have is you have the first instance, for example, like with Kings, right? He presents how Adam presents what it is to be a king in the biblical narrative. And then you see David, you see Moses, and as it goes through, and then you see the King Christ. And it takes instances throughout the Bible and the things you learn, and there's similarities in these people that present in that way. In the same, you see prophets. And so in the what is a prophet in the Old Testament, he again starts with Adam, goes on to Noah, goes on to Moses, goes on to Ezekiel and Elijah, goes on to John the Baptist, and then Jesus. And so you see this progression of the revelation of what it is to be a prophet, and all of them find themselves in Christ.
Yeah. I think I'll go over in his first chapter, he goes over his methodology. He gives like 4 key things of identifying a typology. There's key terms. There's a repetition of like same phraseology. Basically, the author is using phraseology from previous to bring that idea, and it's and its understanding forward, and then reapply it in that local, more local context. There's direct quotations, so some allusion, sometimes it's direct quotation, repetitions in sequences of events, and you even see this sometimes where the gospel authors will reorder an event like a little bit in order to convey a certain theological idea. And then number 4, similarities in salvation, historical or covenantal import. And so there's these ties that are continued to be presented, and you can see that with like David. Like you kind of see that actually in our Acts episode. We covered how just as David had a close friend that betrayed him, and you see that reflected in Psalms. So then Peter, who goes, "Oh, that happened." We see that in Psalms. And thus, it also happened to Christ. And so there's the same pattern of thinking. And so his thing is when key terms, quotations of earlier material and similarities in salvation, historical, and covenantal import draw our attention to repeated installments in patterns of events, our sense of the importance of those patterns increases. And so there's kind of like...
It's a stacking effect.
Yeah, kind of like, it's a stacking effect, and some of those typologies get interwoven and whatnot. But Josh, what are some of the things? Like, there's so many themes throughout the biblical text. What are some of the ones that he covers?
So he covers Adam, priests, prophets, kings, and then the righteous sufferer, and then creation, Exodus, the Levitic cult, and marriage. And what's cool about it is he structures it in a chiasm, the whole book, because he's fun like that. And we've discussed what a chiasm is before. The middle, you have a list of things. The middle one is the point, the thing that everything's
the most
pointing
important.
to. Yeah. And the first and the last mirror each other. The second first and the second last mirror each other. And so, for example, the first one is Adam and the last one is marriage, because marriage starts with Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis. Priests and the Levitic cult, the Levites reflect each other because the priests were Levites. Prophets and the Exodus occur because Moses, the chief of the prophets, is the one that leads the Exodus. And prophets were related to the exile and wilderness pattern of the Old Testament.
What's the middle bit for this?
Then you have kings and creation, and the kings are the pinnacle of creation and the thing that brings creation to its point. And the middle, the righteous sufferer, which the righteous sufferer was the Adam, is the priest, is the prophet, is the king, is the bringer of new creation, is the final Exodus, is the head priest of the Levitic cult, and is the marriage between Christ and man.
Yeah. It's actually not only that, he also does chiasms in the chapter. It's kind of, he does kind of just out himself as like, I just think they're neat.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to write the book
nerd.
like it. Yeah.
Well, when you start to, and you see this in any field, when you study something intently and that thing becomes your person, right? Like if you're a musician, you just start to think in music. When you're a mathematician, you just start to think in math. And so because he's so in-depth in studying biblical theology, which deals with chiasms and Hebrew structure, he just sees and writes in chiasms.
Right.
So
He is the scholar for him and Thomas Schreiner are the two guys. The reason why I would want to go to Southern Baptist Theological Seminary.
Yeah.
Those are the only two.
Right.
They're huge.
I've
only read 75%. You've finished it. Josh has finished it.
I have one question. I don't know if we're wrapping up our talk
We're not,
on this book,
but carry on.
One question. What is the difference between like typology and like a principle? So like, is it imagery based and theme based? Whereas like a moral principle or something that's an idea throughout the Bible, like say God's faithfulness can be a type, but it could also be a moral principle that you see acted through people, not explicitly, but implicitly. So you get a lot of ideas of how God is morally through and how we as Christians should be morally, not necessarily because of how it's explicitly shown all the time, but sometimes just how people act show what their moral characteristics are. What's the difference between like a moral principle that we build our ideas off of and a type?
a type isn't in the way that you're just talking about, like God's faithfulness, isn't something you do. It's an instantiation of a reflection of Christ.
Of Christ? It doesn't have to be Christ.
So,
Sorry.
all of the typologies coalesce and point to Christ.
Can I try to say
all of them in the Bible?
Yes.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I'd say the vast majority of them. I don't know if I'm confident enough or aware of enough typologies to say all. The vast majority of typologies that I think the biblical authors play with do find their fulfillment in Christ, if not all. All the ones I can think of, they do.
Sure.
Or they find...
I would say like the cities, the type of what the holy city and stuff would be too, would not be centered on Christ, although Christ does bring around like the New Jerusalem
But he
and
is
stuff like that.
What? Sorry.
You get a progression of how cities are shown through the Bible and a typology of the holy city.
Mm-hmm.
You get the temple is kind of connected to that a little bit, but
that is, he will be our God and we will be his people. That is accomplished, and that's the pinnacle of the holy city. Actually, T. Desmond Alexander has a beautiful book, City of God, Short Studies in Biblical Theology. His book on it's awesome. We've covered it here. His thing is that Christ is this pinnacle of that because he is the king of that city. Wherever he is, that is the city of God. Right. The city of God finds its fulfillment.
In the same way that the people of Israel are always outside of the tabernacle.
I do want to address your point, Colton. What's the difference between principle and whatnot? Principle could be built on like one instance of a let's say, quote unquote, an instance of a typology. You can say that. But I think typology is the recognition that there's an organic growth of an idea or a concept that does morph and grow and integrate with other things, pointing somewhere, going towards its trajectory.
Right. Are those more like a type? It's more of a literary device
sometimes
than like a like something that is moral or something that is physically real.
It's
I would say if you're dealing with more abstract things, it becomes like parallelism more than it becomes a type, right? If it's just restating the same idea, then it's parallelism. But if it's building to a precipice, like the holy city being one that is lit up by the sun, that would be typology, right? Because it's more of like a progressive parallelism.
I think I have never, again, Colton, not Colton, Josh has read the whole thing. Typology, to answer your question, I think this is the best book I have found on typology ever.
Okay.
This is the best. If you want to understand the Bible's interwoven connectedness, there is nothing I've found on the market quite like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
At all.
And another thing is that like typologies deal with, as he presents, persons, places, institutions, and events.
Right.
And so you're not dealing with like, there is the idea of
Righteousness of God.
The righteousness of God, but that is again, that is a top-down presentation of what the righteousness of God looks like, and it's in instances, and you see it. There's not. You don't see that progressive growth.
I think it's
in
more
the
organic.
image.
It's organic. So,
because I always thought that the main difference is whether or not it's a literary device, right? Because typology is specifically a literary device.
I don't think it is.
Biblical theology, maybe. Well, yes. There's an aspect of it that's definitely a literary device. But I think biblical theology would also say that it's more. It's also a method of theology.
Mm-hmm.
A method, like its own branch of theology?
Yeah, it's where biblical theology as a whole, as opposed to systematics, leans heavily on typology.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so it's a literary device because the Bible's a piece of literature.
I'm just trying to find like what his definition or what your definition of like what is typology versus just pattern seeking? Because
growth and organic development in the idea, I would say.
Okay. Is that on purpose or no?
His argument, Hamilton's argument is that the majority of the authors knew it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that, as Christians, we can say that the whole Bible has been inspired by God. So whether the individual authors actually knew it or not, that's not.
It's also not like, so when you have a typology, You have the first instance, the archetype. You have echotypes, which is every instance after that, and then you have the antitype, the culmination of the typology. Every echotype makes reference to the original, the archetype, or one of the previous versions, and then presents something. It grows.
Well, he also differentiates. Hamilton does.
Yeah.
That there are echoes. So it's just a reinstallment of like the past idea. And then there's like movements or progression where it's like things, this idea gets a little more, either grows a bit or becomes a little bit more defined. And he differentiates those a bit. And that's helpful too.
Yeah. Okay. And so with God's faithfulness, you're seeing this is a story about God's faithfulness. This is a story about God's faithfulness. His faithfulness is here again. Whereas this, you have the story of Adam, and then you have the story of Noah, and the just simply like words, like he was supposed to keep the animals and guard them, and it's that phrase was used with Adam to keep and protect the garden, keep and work the garden. And so you have like, and then he builds a vineyard, and God is present, and so you're seeing the presentation of the story is happening the same way, and you're seeing Noah behave the way that Adam did. And then you're seeing, oh, well, how does it fall apart? Because of sin related to a fruit, I think, and in a garden. And so you're seeing the repetition of a pattern, and it grows and develops, and it's showing you what is the thing that's connecting the two. And then the thing that's connecting the two, that is then presented in Christ as this is the thing that they were all pointing towards.
Well, I think that the jump from Colton saying, well, like, how is it not just pattern seeking? What do you do about the pattern? What does the pattern say and mean? That would be where you get into typology. Because recognizing that there's just a pattern is like, okay.
Right.
But what does the pattern mean? How did it come? Like, why is there a pattern? How should we interpret that pattern? How does that interact with other patterns? That's more like where typology as a theological method comes into play.
Okay.
But yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a 5 out of 5 book.
Josh, you've read the whole thing. Go off.
Oh,
recommend it.
It's a 5 out of 5 book. You will get multiple courses worth of theological work just reading this book.
100% agree.
Okay. Sorry, that sounded like a disagreement. I was just like, oh wow, that's surprising.
Yeah. It's the amount of, normally I can read a book pretty fast in my side, like I can continuously read. I couldn't continue reading because I had to continuously think about the ideas that I was being presented with. It was so dense that it took me 3 months to read.
How many pages is it?
It's only 320. Yeah.
So a fairly hefty
340 books.
theology
pages.
book, but not as bad as like a lot of systematics can get.
No, but like
it's more interconnected. This sounds wild. I think it's more interconnected than most systematics.
Yes.
Which is funny because it's really a biblical theology book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything is connected, like partly because like when I presented before, like the first one, Adam and marriage are connected, right? And the last one, marriage, are connected. But also the same passages that he's bringing up in the first half are present in the Exodus and the creation ones. And so you're seeing this overlay, and what he's actually doing is expertly is weaving the story of the Bible together in 300 pages.
Yeah, I've never found something that ties so many themes together quite like this.
I would argue that this is the closest you're going to get to a whole Bible theology.
Yeah. I'm very excited to read his actual whole Bible theology.
Yeah.
God's glory and salvation through suffering. Look forward to something about that, by the way.
Cool. Is it released yet? Or
oh yeah.
Yes, I have it.
Cool.
It's over.
It is also a beautiful book. Josh, 5 out of 5 on the cover.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, this is.
Is this the perfect? Hold on. Is this the first perfect book?
Yeah,
I think you've given 5 out of 5 before.
I've given 5 out of 5,
not in content and cover.
Yeah, no. This is top 5 books I've ever read.
Okay. Wow.
I don't think there's a person I wouldn't recommend it towards, even if it's above someone's reading level.
Yeah.
Okay.
They will gain something.
Interesting. That's high praise.
It's
That's probably the highest praise I've ever seen you two give about anything ever.
And I disagree with his methodology quite a bit.
I was going to say that. Josh
the
has
thing,
given
though.
more the positives about the
you
Matrix.
might disagree with it, but it infects you.
It does. He is persuasive. Yes.
Yeah. Well, because he does such a good job where he's just like, yeah, I think it's, I think the author knew because, and here's why. And it's just, you're reading it and you're just like, yeah, like he had, like, other than he just happened to write it.
That's fascinating.
I think God's inspiring spirit also. So we did a little bit longer of what have we read because we really like this book. You should read it as well.
No, I have to.
Joel.
Yeah.
The audience knows this is a Thoughts in Real Time episode.
But I don't.
Fair enough.
So we should probably get to that at some point.
Yeah, at some point, for sure. So we're doing a Thoughts in Real Time this week. A TERT, which we've affectionately called it. It's not called Turd. Turd, Colton.
I didn't say turd.
I came up with this, and you called it a turd.
I didn't.
I'm leaving. No, I'm kidding.
I expected more from a geologist.
Thoughts. Yeah.
That's not going to make any sense to anyone.
The pinnacle of human thought is geology.
Anyway, Joel.
Welcome to TERT.
Let's make inside jokes that nobody knows.
That's the whole podcast.
Next section.
That's the whole podcast. So what we do during our Thoughts in Real Time episode, I put together a bunch of questions, either from you guys' comments or online chats or just random apologetics bits that I really like. Or I don't really like, and I want to talk about with the guys.
We send Joel into the underbelly of Christian
Man, I
internet.
come out just holding a bag full of garbage JPEGs. Just the worst.
A lot.
There it is. It is a trash compactor on the internet.
I've seen more schizo posting by you quoting other people than I have just normal schizos.
Yeah, it's fair.
Here's the thing, but some of comments
we're
we've
allowed to
gotten,
say that.
some of the comments we've gotten on our videos, will come up in this episode, not this specific episode, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
we don't know. We don't know what he's brought up.
We love all interaction, and we'd love to talk about it on these Thoughts in Real Time episodes too.
And so some questions, especially ones that we get directed at us, I think they're pretty good. I like
And
they make my day.
We should, like, we've done this before, but remember that, like, some of these people might not have the education we do, or they might ask things or say things that we would go like, that's dumb, that's bad.
And often they say actually good, like there is a lot of good questions out there that we have been asked on these Thoughts in Real Time episodes too.
But when
not
we
just
see these things, we
strange
need to
people.
approach it with, like,
Yes.
these people might
Everyone
not know
has
what to say.
ideas.
And they might be a brother and sister in Christ,
Yes.
depending on how good their question is. There's also a high chance they're not.
Joel scrolling through, what is the dumbest question I have prepared? Okay.
Yeah. Most of them are just insulting to me personally. Anyways, let's get into it. So I'm starting off with a good one from one of our listeners, posted on one of our videos
Oh, really?
or one of our podcasts.
From who?
The
we don't have to
username
say.
doesn't
You don't have to
seem
say.
to be a person, so I'm not going to refer to him. John, we'll call him John. Hey, John.
Okay.
Good to hear from you. Here's what he says, and we're going to use this as a jumping off point for the conversation. Nearing the end of my Old Testament first read, and my top 5 would be Deuteronomy, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, and then Proverbs.
That's 4.
And Jeremiah.
Okay.
Jeremiah.
I haven't
Honestly-
read Daniel or the Minor Prophets yet. Let's talk about it.
Okay. First of all, banger 5. Those are pretty
They're
great.
pretty good, yeah.
I'm a fan.
Like that it's his first time reading through it, and he's already like, "Oh yeah, no, these are the best ones."
Should
I don't
we-
even disagree with him.
Do we need to put his tier list beside ours? And
Yeah, no, it's definitely his is better than yours. Don't worry. Just
Many
kidding.
tears will be shed.
If you disagree with our Bible tier list episode, you should try being there for the next one.
Making our own. That's what
wasn't
you're gonna
my
say.
fault.
So the next move is that Colton and I make one on our own episode,
And then we do it all together, and we all yell at each other.
and then we
the
do
whole
it all
time.
together, and then we really mash it out.
Josh,
Yeah.
are they just jealous that they weren't there that episode?
Yeah.
I think so. I think
I
so.
listened to the episode, and I wasn't
No one
jealous.
told me.
I was
They're
angry.
just angry
No one
because
told
we
me it
made
was
a
happening.
very successful episode.
That's right. That's right.
It is technically our most successful episode, which is super weird.
I like what this guy's his
John,
favorite.
you said?
Yeah, I like what John has chosen.
Yeah.
Me too.
Deuteronomy isn't my favorite in the Old Testament, but it is super impactful.
Yeah.
And the fact that Psalms is up there and Ecclesiastes, which is one of my favorite Old Testament books,
Yeah.
I can sympathize with this guy. I like it.
Deuteronomy has some of my favorite quotes.
Jesus too.
Yes.
Like Moses was the most humble among old men.
Yeah. And the whole like divine council theology starts to come from there.
Yeah.
So
Deuteronomy is my favorite Pentateuch book. So,
But let's talk about how cool it is that this guy's reading through the Old Testament for the first time.
yeah.
Or girl. I guess I never really opened up that option. But yeah, it could
No,
be
you
guy or
said
girl,
John.
whatever. I did say John.
Johnette.
Johnette.
Not Joanne.
Not Joanne, no, Johnette. It's,
Continue.
I don't know. That's just cool to me. Like,
Yeah.
if you guys were reading through the Old Testament, at what point do you guys think you'd be tripped up? You'd be like, okay, this is wild.
Oh.
Tripped up about what?
Well, that's for you to decide.
The part that got me when I was
Right.
younger, when I read through the Old Testament,
Yeah.
was Ezekiel.
Okay.
That's fair.
That was the part that I would like, my brain died. Like I could get numbers because it was lists of people. Like
Yeah.
But it was the Ezekiel where it was like I just had no idea how to, as we discussed off the podcast, but I had no idea how to discuss apocalyptic literature or how to understand it at the age of 13.
Mine was Chronicles because it was like I read this before.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to Numbers and I was very. You said Numbers is easy. For me, it's probably the book that took me the longest to read through on my first time because it took me like a year or two when I was a kid to get through it just because it is just lists of people and I couldn't stand it. And I challenged myself to actually read through all of it in case I missed something. And I had such a hard time.
Either that or Psalms. I have not actually liked Psalms. Now, like in my devotions, I've started reading Psalms daily. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I've fallen in love with the Book of Psalms. Actually, James M. Hamilton's commentary on Psalms, beautiful.
I need to buy it.
But it's a 2-set. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Until like 2 years ago, I was kind of like, Psalms.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I have a theory that as you study the Bible more, the Psalms increases in import to you personally. Because as you start to understand the word of God and the struggles of how to like relate to him and how he relates to humanity, because the Psalms is the reflection of humanity's heart in relationship to God, you start to see that in yourself.
Yeah, I could totally subscribe to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's his first time and this is top 3.
Yes.
Yeah. So like he's doing
He's
better
on the
than
next
me.
level. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, yeah.
These are an interesting 5. The fact that he hasn't read through the Minor Prophets.
I think Daniel's going to be
It's
a banger.
interesting.
So just let me know how that went. This was from 2 weeks ago. So hopefully we get another message that's like, hey, finish Daniel. Pretty cool.
No,
I think
Most of
Jonah's.
them are pretty easy to get through.
I think Jonah's
great.
best.
I think
Sounds great.
Daniel's super hard to get through. It took me a long time to figure out what Daniel's all about. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think, like we had one of my favorite episodes series that we did was the Jonah, the Freedom. Is that what we
The
call it?
Nineveh
No,
series.
The Nineveh series.
Yeah.
The Jonah and Nahum
Yeah.
ones. Are they back to back in the Bible? I don't actually think so. There's one between them, isn't
Yeah, I
there?
don't think they're back.
No, they're not back to back.
Be
but
cool though.
Having both
Geography.
those-
Sorry.
having both of those in the Bible seem kind of odd, I think, for the first reader through. Like you have Jonah who's like, yeah, this is great, like whatever. He's already gone through all the history stuff, so I guess it would make sense.
It's
But the going through Jonah and being like forgiving, and then Nahum being specifically like, I'm going to destroy all of you.
it's just
Very odd.
It's just the Old Testament. I would say the Old Testament narrative proof of divine simplicity,
yes.
and it's beautiful.
What do you mean?
The fact that God is not angry at one moment and then this at that, and he's not more of this attribute and then less of this attribute. He is all of his attributes.
Yeah.
He's not. You cannot partition him.
Yeah.
And one of the beauties and this would be the Jonah and Nahum, the characteristics of God that's listed in both of those books have ties to Exodus.
They have ties to the same phrase.
Yeah. Their understanding is God is the same. He acts that how according to his character, which is who he is, right? And yet, depending on the exterior world, the material world, that is where you will land up in grace or judgment.
And it centers on that phrase that he gives to Moses when Moses asks to see him, when he sees his glory, and he says, I am a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and rich in love. I will have compassion on whom I have compassion, and hate whom I hate.
Yeah.
And then that is also the central passage in Romans when it talks about election.
Yeah, this John guy, he didn't say specifically if he's read the New Testament all the way through, has he?
No, he doesn't.
Right.
John, comment.
Yeah, John, we would love to know more about your journey, and we'll cover it on our next turn episode.
I like
We
to
will
think that
recommend
you
books.
haven't gone through the New Testament pretty much at all. And so you're reading all this, and then you're going to get my favorite character who dies. Spoilers. Jesus.
I thought you meant Steven. Sorry.
You don't get that until episode 5.
No,
of the New Testament.
Judas the whole time.
Oof. Gotta love an anti-hero. And maybe I shouldn't say that.
He's not an anti-hero.
He's a
That's
villain.
a villain.
Yeah.
Possessed by Satan is not an anti-hero.
No, I'm not going to bring up Morbius. Never mind.
Morbius.
Anyway.
Morbid time.
Next question. Thanks,
Anyway.
John.
Before we get
Reading
into
through
heresy,
the Old Testament all the way through is great for reading the New Testament through. I love it.
I would always say read the New Testament first.
Sure.
Right. I'm there because my guess, this is the first thing that would turn you on to reading scripture, would be reading the New Testament, the gospel specifically.
Well, and you don't want to.
Jesus didn't read the New Testament first.
That's true.
But that's also because he was Jewish.
I would argue you
and-
kind of did.
At the same time, if you're willing to go through the entire Old Testament, you're not going to stop with the New Testament.
Again,
it's not going to hold you up.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of his name now? Whatever. Holy old guy, saint.
Most holy old guy.
Most holy old guy is one of our profs said. What the New Testament teaches, what the Old Testament concealed.
Yes. Yeah. Or as John Calvin said, the New Testament is God putting his finger on the Old Testament and showing you where to read.
During one Bible study I had when I was about 14 or 15. August. Oh, okay.
He's the most holy old guy.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying about me with my Bible studies. Like,
No,
yeah,
sorry.
Augustine. I was just like, oh, what? But one of the things that my youth pastor, because it was the Bible study with my youth pastor and a few of us, he asked the question, why do we read the Old Testament and why does it matter? And generally the answer was, it doesn't look like it matters that much. You don't really, his thing was, why do we need it? And he's being facetious. He has a reason why.
Mm-hmm.
But his whole thing was like, a lot of people are like, yeah, a lot of the Old Testament seems to get canceled out with the New Testament, which I think is fascinating for seeing like where the mind space of many Christians is. It's that the Old Testament doesn't matter, which,
Wild.
yeah, as biblical theology students, I think we all go bad. At the same time, there is a lot of reasons and fair reasons why people ignore the Old Testament a lot of the time. I just don't think you should do it. So I say reading through the Old Testament is fantastic. You should do it. It's a good idea.
Cool. Yeah, no, I'm there. Read the New Testament.
Jesus
And report back
considered
to
it of
us.
utmost
Report back to
importance.
us. This is your mission.
Okay, John. Or Johnette.
The final word should be Jesus's, which he considered the Old Testament the revelation of God and of the utmost importance, and that it will not fade. So,
Okay, guys, here's an interesting one for you.
Very good question. And now, better question.
And it's not a better question. John, keep sending the bangers because this one's getting pretty bad. Are animals / pets in heaven?
Yes.
Here's the part that was interesting. Since they don't carry the first sin of Adam and Eve.
So that means they're in hell?
Curious on your thoughts. Here's the first
they
thing
were
that I thought
subjected
of.
to fertility. Hold on.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, Caleb, I want to say something before we're done. When I used to go to apple orchards in the summer, and when fruit would fall from the trees, the deers would come along and eat them. So my first thought was like, were deers the first ones to commit this great sin?
Oh my.
And yeah. Anyways, but let's talk about it. Why doesn't the first sin, apply to animals?
I have one answer, and that's Ecclesiastes 3:20 or 21. Can't remember specifically.
Okay.
It says that who knows where the spirit of man goes? Does it go down with the animals to the earth or go up to God? And so it seems like the Bible says that animals don't go to heaven. I'm being facetious. No, that's not what it means. But
Tell us what it means.
it means we don't know.
Yeah.
It means that
The answer is we
author.
can't
It means
say.
that the author of Ecclesiastes didn't know.
Yeah, and specifically saying that how can you be assured of your own salvation? That's one of the things about it. Yeah,
Yeah. Do you think the New Testament shares any light on that?
for animals.
No. For us.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it hasn't. Yeah. I just wanted to bring up my favorite passage of Ecclesiastes.
I
Fair
think in Romans 8:20, the whole for the creation was subjected to fertility. Futility. Sorry, I said it again. Not willingly, but because of him who subjected it.
Mm.
I keep saying the same thing. Forgive me. And the idea is that creation in of itself has been marred by their vice regents.
Mhm.
And so the idea would be that with the salvation, what that passage later goes on to call the adoption of sons into glory, with the salvation of said vice regents, creation itself will also be redeemed. And so, just as humanity was corrupted through the fall, so was creation.
Yeah.
So, Caleb, do you then think that your own personal pet could come back in the new creation? Why?
Why? Why would I think that?
Because you love your pet.
Cool.
Okay, so I want to break down a little bit. What
So,
we can,
I'm sorry
I want to talk about what Caleb said.
so what you're saying is that yes, in the new creation there will be animals because this world is getting redeemed.
Yeah.
Right. However, the idea of the world being redeemed from its sin and animals being a part of that doesn't mean that the resurrection that we obtain carries on to every living thing.
Yep.
Humans are resurrected, the world is remade.
Yes.
So
although I would like to draw a closer tie to the same life that causes
Yes.
our resurrection is the remaking of the world.
Yes, but the idea is that it's not all the same animals that are brought back from the old creation.
Right.
It's just animals are brought back the same as the earth is brought. Trees are there, but it doesn't mean that
there will be no bloodshed. The lion will sleep sleep beside the cub or the
Yeah.
lamb and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I don't totally know.
Isaiah stuff.
Yeah, and people will argue about to what degree is the fabric of reality itself
Mhm.
marred. Like, I mean, you do have like the big freeze, right? There's only so much energy in the universe,
Right.
If let's say if Jesus were to come back on Earth, well, then the sun's going to go out. So what about that? So like the Christian concept,
Eventually.
yeah. And like, not just our sun, but every sun eventually. And maybe we're just wrong about that, but that's where at least things are pointing right now. And one of the things that I think Josh pointed out earlier, I don't know if it was on a podcast or not, he did the whole, when Adam and Eve are cast out and the curse is upon them, God remarks, you will die, you will surely die.
Yeah.
And the big freeze kind of seems like a little bit of there is no
it
escape.
doesn't matter what you do.
The only hope to escape this corrupted and ultimately, if we're going to say, to hell in a handbasket doomed reality is a hope in some sort of transcendent reality breaking in.
i.e., the kingdom of heaven, the city of heaven coming down, the New Jerusalem.
Yeah.
God being with his people.
The remaking of the fabric of reality.
Yep.
But what does that exactly mean?
All things turn
Yeah.
new. Yeah.
What it at least means is that the Bible does not preach animal resurrection. It
No.
preaches human resurrection
And animal restoration.
and animal restoration. There we go.
Nice.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fluffles will not be there. Also, my childhood dog, Baxter. I'm sorry, he won't be there.
In the mind of God and in us, he will. But
In the mind of God.
I do
My
know
Shih
a
Tzu still exists.
I do know a
Yes.
fair amount of especially very modern people who put more weight into the the life of their pet over the life of other people.
Yeah.
It's a very modern thing.
It's a
but-
very bad thing.
Sure, I agree. At the same time, they put so much. They treat their pets like their family, largely because arguably they are, not to the same extent as humans and all that. And we can say, well, they're just wrong, but why do we like? Not that we like. Why do we say no? It's not true, rather than, well, I hope it's true, but it's probably not. Like, why do we say that pets will not be resurrected into heaven? Or I say resurrected. Why isn't in the new creation? Why is there not people's very loved and dear pets with them?
Because they ain't got no soul. Right? Like, that's got to be it. They might have a soul, but it's not the same as a human soul.
I would just simply go with resurrection is taught as for humans.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a human. It's a theology centered on humanity, not on creation.
Yeah.
But in the same way that we are described as being restored from our sins by justification, earth is restored to holiness by its creator. And so it's not resurrected, as you mentioned before, but it is restored to goodness. And so that means that all of creation, the sin is wiped free. The city of heaven comes down and God is with his people in creation as it's better, but also as it ought to have been in Eden.
Yeah.
The goal was that the glory would be spread around the world via humanity. And now that is being done so.
Yeah.
And so there will be animals because it's part of God's beautiful creation and it's part of what we are regents over. But
Not only that, like I can understand, especially why. Let's say if there's an 8-year-old little girl that asks, "Hey, my puppy got hit by a truck, and is Mr. Fluffles going to be in heaven?" I'm not going to go, "No, get used to never seeing Mr. Fluffles again." I might go, I don't know, right? But if a 40-year-old person comes up to me and is like, "Hey, I want to see my pet dog that I grew up," it's like, okay. The restructuring of reality and God being proclaimed king, both as ruling in over creation in heaven, but in the merger and the restoration of reality. And you're worried about Mr. Fluffles? Okay. Let's focus on what the Bible does say.
yeah, sure. And so to that point, when you're saying why don't we just say, I don't know, rather than saying this is what,
Like, no,
for
it's
sure.
silly to think that way.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's silly, but it doesn't teach animal resurrection, and it certainly is leaning towards restoration of creation. So it's not just we don't know, it's here's what the Bible teaches and here is the direction that it's pointing.
Right.
And it's not in that direction. And so all available evidence is showing us that it is in fact the opposite. But it's not just simply it doesn't teach it or we don't know. It's presenting in the opposite direction. But
Also, dogs in the redeemed reality are going to be better anyway.
true.
I mean, they're already one of
Well, so would Mr. Fluffles in the redeemed reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Why is Mr. Fluffles where you guys are going? That's not even, you sound like a dog name to me.
Okay, Spot in the new reality would
Fido.
be Fido,
Fido.
yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, Caleb.
Okay.
I don't think that animals are going to be in the redeemed reality. I do know that it's a sticking point for a lot of people.
There's a disproportionate amount of people that are concerned about it, which is wild.
Okay, if they're in the redeemed reality, are they domesticated or no?
I think they'd have to be.
Otherwise,
I don't know.
Otherwise, then cows would be there too. All
Well,
of
they
the
would-
cows.
I mean,
we've
there's
killed.
still cows that aren't domesticated.
I know, but all the cows that we have quote unquote domesticated.
In fairness, we don't know how much of the life cycle of the natural order, I think, is part of corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Is the seed that dies off the tree and grows a new tree, is that part of corruption because it involved death?
Well, no.
And I use that as the example because
Yeah.
as soon as you start to apply that to the animal kingdom, well, now you're including suffering, animal suffering, and pain because carnivores and stuff like that. And there are people who will go, well, carnivores are part of the curse on the earth.
Well,
I don't
Isaiah starts to go that way.
Yeah.
Whether or not he's right is a different question, or if he's just
and whether or
saying-
not he's using that as an analogy for the the horrors of the
Sure.
of the
And-
natural world.
But it's a very
The-
specific analogy to use.
Well, and the death of the seed would not be considered death because that is what's required for new trees to be born, and that's what in Genesis says happens with the new they can have more of their kind.
Mhm.
And so Genesis would not consider tree growth to be death.
Well, how about salmon?
Yeah.
What
you know,
about all of the animals that
salmon
die
will
to have
die.
their their babies eat out their body until they come out into
Yeah.
life, like
Well-
a lot of spiders.
Oh, yeah.
Or I would use salmon
Or
because
crabs
they
that
beach
eat their own
themselves
children.
after.
I mean, that one's a little brutal, but
And those type of questions, I don't know if we really know those answers to those questions. I think again, the Bible's not written. Well, not again because it was the first time we're saying it. The Bible's not written to be a science textbook.
Yeah.
we have said that before.
Yeah.
But not here.
So yeah, does that answer the question, Ish?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting response to it. It really has more to do with who carries the first sin of Adam than anything else.
Yeah,
So
I
really
kind of
appreciate that.
ignored.
Yeah, vice regent relationship to creation. I think that's the
Yeah,
answer to the
it's-
question.
And it's the same with the king of Israel was evil, therefore the people of Israel were evil.
Also, if
It's that
animals
same idea.
don't bear the first sin of creation, then they wouldn't be condemned in the first place. So what's the point?
Just read
Based on
Romans.
his own argument.
Just
Yeah.
read Romans 8. That answers that
Romans
question.
8 solves this question.
Dude, Romans
I mean,
8
yeah,
solves
it
so
solves a lot of
many
problems.
questions.
Romans 8, also the passage where the Jonah question comes up as well.
Okay, I'm going to read the first half of this question and let you guys talk about it.
'Kay.
Then I'll read the second half. What is the significance of Moses' staff turning into a snake and eating the counterfeit servants? Servants?
Servants?
Serpents.
That'd be fuck
Serpents of the Pharaoh's priests.
Power. Dominance.
Playing with the big boys.
No.
Well, that's beautiful.
I hate that song so
I
much.
love it so much.
It's the only part of that movie I
It's
hate.
my favorite
Really?
movie ever
Yeah.
made.
Oh. Prince of Egypt. Good movie.
It's the greatest movie ever made.
Jeff Goldblum. Best performance.
Once you hear his voice, you can't really
Caleb,
divorce
true.
the character. And
Caleb, do you
Aaron,
want to go
right?
first?
I just agree with.
I figured this
Golden.
would go right
Power.
into
Golden
some,
say
Power and dominance. God
Over
holds
what?
power over the gods of Egypt.
dare I
Interesting.
say, polemic.
I will ask Josh,
Polemic.
as
It's a
our
sad
resident person who has studied the most about Satan, serpent imagery, dragon
Yes.
imagery.
As a resident
Oh
Satanist.
no, that's what this question
No.
is going, isn't it?
No.
Oh, sorry.
So the way we talked about the biblical theology of serpents,
Mhm.
the short studies in biblical theology. The place he goes with it is again with typology, is the type of the one who will defeat Satan is presented as a master over serpents. And Moses is one of those presentations of the Christ figure that will come.
Mm.
And you see him have mastery over a serpent as the presentation of him being the one who represents God.
I've heard that before, yeah.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah. And you also see again that same Moses is the same one that crafts the bronze serpent and all are healed.
Mhm.
That it is there's a relationship through the mastery over serpents as the one who brings redemption to Israel.
Redemption in life.
Yeah. And you see that in a couple stories throughout the Old Testament. Again, with Saul, when he defeats, we brought up in Samuel, when he defeats Nakash, whose name means serpent,
In the desert.
as his pinnacle story of him defeating the nations to prove that he is king and has the spirit of kingship.
Mhm.
And then Jesus, the first thing he does after he's baptized is he defeats the devil in the desert. And so
40 days.
40 days.
And it's Lent, so like connection right point. Anyway,
Yeah.
the second part of the question.
I don't think you want the second part of the question.
I know
Um,
it's going to.
And the second part of the question is I keep having reoccurring dreams and visions.
Visions.
Oh, so like Joseph.
I mean, I
pretty
don't want to
wild.
like write too much onto this person's question.
He doesn't say anything after that. He just says he has recurring dreams and visions.
That's it. I mean, there's no comments because I got it 4 minutes after it was posted. It was one of those things where like I gotta get this one locked and loaded.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay, so
There is not enough there for us
let
to
me make
say
a question
anything.
for you. Let me make a question for you. What is the role of dreams in the life of a Christian? That's a tough one, isn't it?
I I think dreams have a naturalistic function like the rest of the functions of the body, but there is an odd time, very rarely, and it's pretty obvious when it happens, when God decides to use a dream like he uses many other mediums.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things that I think Caleb has brought up once or twice before, that it's like God can use pretty much anything to inspire you.
Oh, yes.
It just has to be checked against the yardstick that is Scripture.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting that they're having these, these dreams and visions specifically about a biblical story that has a context.
Yeah.
But I just, for the life of me, I wouldn't be able to connect that to my own life.
The naturalistic function of dreams and nightmares specifically
Yeah.
are like
Training in the simulations.
yes. So the idea is that it's a reoccurring thing that you are seeing.
Yeah.
Of things that happen in the day that your brain is bringing up because it values them as important.
Just like the simulations.
I'm sorry, that was too good of a joke.
It is. So nightmares specifically, the reason they repeat, you like if you go through a traumatic moment and you're reliving the traumatic moment in nightmares.
So you're going over how you could survive it, or remember it for next time, or what you could do better.
Yeah, it's your brain is figuring out how can I fix this problem so that it never occurs.
That is the main theory, but scientists aren't entirely sure.
You're right.
Dreams are kind of is ephemeral the right word?
We're not talking about naturalistic stuff. I don't think that's the question.
No. But wait, because we have to talk about like what do dreams play the role of in the Christian life? So if it's nightmares are reoccurring, other things, these are just normal processes in the human brain that are occurring.
Okay.
However, when you see in the Bible, there are people, as we have read, that have dreams that then God interprets.
Mm-hmm.
However, usually they are significantly different than just normal dreams.
And we should expect that to happen in the now because of Joel.
Yes.
Not Joel. Not this
The
Joel.
book of Joel. So they will happen.
Your young men will see visions and your old men will dream dreams.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, the biblical dreams that you see happen are very different than just normal dreams.
Right.
They're not just random images that are passing through. There's like with the dreams that Pharaoh had, there was a course of events.
And he
There's a
doesn't
pattern.
know God.
And he doesn't know God.
Yeah.
And so he's pointing out the fact that I'm having a dream that is not like any other dream that I've had. If you have a dream and you're like, oh, that just stuck out to me, that's not the same as saying I had a dream about there was a bunch of cows, they ate a bunch of food, and then there was a bunch of emaciated cows that ate the old cows. And there's a clear story and presentation being brought through it. Or like with Daniel or with other characters where they're like, God came and talked to me. I saw a vision. He presented something. He presented a story and a future about specific events relating to me and the time and my entire culture. Those aren't normal dreams. Normal dreams are I saw a golden spider on a cliff and some dude walked down these steps and it starts to break reality and nothing matches. It's, what is the term? Super...
Lapsarianism. Sorry,
no.
No, it's not that. No, it's not that.
For what?
When something doesn't make sense, like a type of it's not absurdist. It starts with an S. Surreal.
Surreal.
Yeah. So it's surreal. It's nothing. Nothing makes sense. It's just random information passing through each other. So there's a clear difference between biblical dreams and visions and the dreams we have every night. So what does it play into the role of the Christian? Well, you will know when you have a dream.
I don't know if I'd go as hard of a stance on that. I don't know how that works. I haven't done a study into dreams in the Bible. So maybe it is like they knew it was something different. Or it could have been part of the culture and they thought all dreams meant something or something like that. I don't know.
That is part of the context. Like the dream interpretation books are awesome. Like I've read some of the ones for the Babylonians.
Yeah.
So interesting. They're like, yeah, and if you see one that's oil, look out. And it's like, oh, no explanation for that, but it's good. Because what they would do is they would find different dreams that people had, write them down, and then whatever was the perceived outcome after the dream was referenced as the always outcome of that dream. And they would basically make these long running. Yeah, that's why the Assyrian dream books are like
The Assyrian dream books.
Sometimes they call them the divination books, but yeah, it's just
All right,
it's
we're getting
not
into
even
stuff I have no idea about.
it's not even a specific book. It's just kind of a type of divination
Okay.
where it's records of different occurrences that were seen as abnormal. Some of those being dreams.
Mhm.
Part of the reason why Daniel would have been called is because he actually would have been trained in those dream books
Yeah.
and then brought to Nebuchadnezzar.
So it's basically they're trying to find the connections between all dreams
Yeah.
to be able to interpret when you see something in relationship to the rest of the stuff in the dream that this is what it means.
Which, to
Because they
be
were
fair,
assuming dreams were
Right.
from the divine.
it's just like the most
So.
incredibly rudimentary psychology, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it is
it is-
psychotherapy.
Yeah.
I have two things to say because we've been talking about dreams for a while. Two things to say that I think are interesting, and they have to do with not biblical inspiration, dream and inspired, whether or not they're inspired by God and stuff like that. First one is very personal and subjective. There have been times where I've been asleep and had a dream where, in the dream, Jesus or God or something challenges me to a moral thing, and then I either feel convicted when I wake up, or I feel like I've done something that's good. Now, do I believe that those are from God? I actually don't think so, but I understand why someone would with something
Interesting.
like that.
Did you ever talk about them with a pastor?
No, I don't talk to people about my dreams.
Okay.
That's
just broke that rule.
That's like so what
Yeah, this is
pastors
very-
are there for though.
I know I don't talk about my dreams very often because normally I don't think they mean anything.
Yeah.
But the second thing is that growing up, I would be recommended books by people about their dreams. Yeah, which sounds very strange. And some of them were like,
Yeah.
here I have seen the prophecy. Yeah, no, I know about how the end times is going to happen. And there's one that was really famous. I can't remember what it's called, but basically it's like a mountain, and like as heaven like comes to earth, it's about the end times and stuff. Is that the Satan's armies are coming to the base of the mountain and stuff like that, and people are trying to climb this mountain to get to Jesus, who's on the very top. And each level of the mountain has like different things happening, and then once you get to the top, you're like given whatever, and then you come down and you help Jesus. Once everyone makes it to the top, you come down and then destroys all of Satan's armies, stuff like that. Basically, it's a weird fantasy book. But
Left behind. Left behind.
It's not Left Behind.
I almost said Lost in Space.
I can't remember the name of the book, but books like that where they claim it is an actual vision from God about the end times or about something that's happening or something like that. And so, what do you guys think about stuff like that?
Well, we said this earlier with Caleb.
Hacks.
Was if it disagrees with the Bible, it wasn't a vision from God.
Didn't disagree with the Bible in any way I saw.
Well, there's a presentation of the eschatological events.
Mhm.
And so,
If you have a weak eschatology, which is common in the vast majority of traditions right now, right? I think part of that is people feel like eschatology is a buffet.
Mhm.
They can just choose
Okay.
whatever they want, and they don't see any reason to choose one thing over another. Whatever. If you have a weak eschatology, it leaves you very vulnerable to certain things. Or if you have a quote unquote strong eschatology that's just doesn't actually account for many of the varieties in, let's say, genre of the way eschatology is presented in the New Testament, because some eschatology is presented in a more solid form than other eschatological passages or even books, such as Revelation.
Mhm.
I think in the modern day, we suffer very much from a confused and almost non-existent eschatological formation in the majority of Christians. And so books like that, when somebody says, "Oh, I figured it out, I had a dream," they sell,
Yep.
even if he believes it.
I don't know if it's fair to say weak eschatology, because I don't think it's an eschatology problem. It's a problem with, where you put your priorities when you read the Bible.
Oh, it might be, that might be a symptom of a larger problem, but I think it is a problem. But I think it may be, to your point, it might be a symptom of even a greater problem.
Right. Things that I don't know nearly enough about eschatology to actually say whether or not something's weak or something's strong. Because some people put a lot of weight into like their own personal interpretation of what it means, which I disagree that's not a good way of doing it. But then some people put a very strong weight into a historical view of what it means, which is also not a good way of doing it because they, a lot of old people are wrong on things. It's complicated. Like,
But complicated doesn't mean, like, how can I say it? Just because something is difficult, just because something is even to impossible for you to achieve in your lifetime, does not mean that you cannot make progress.
of course.
Yeah, I don't know. There's several books that I read on Revelation. I wrote.
You wrote a book on Revelation.
No, I didn't. I had a paper. I had a paper on hermeneutics for apocalyptic literature. I don't even know if I necessarily agree with my conclusions in my paper right now. But that being said, I have come further along in my way of how I would read specifically Revelation and Daniel and a little bit of Ezekiel than previously. And I don't think that just because I have not landed at the answer, because today we're so hungry for finding the answer to things and just definitively being able to put it down, I have the answer, that if you don't have the answer, well then, what makes you any different than the rest of us who are just as confused?
Mm-hmm. Right.
No, you're not just as confused. There is progress to understanding, especially for things that are not science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also
spiritual realities.
A lot of the progress in studying the Bible is not necessarily knowing the right answer, but in coming closer to God.
Yeah.
So
we circled back to our topic that we were talking about
let's
before
talk
the
about
podcast.
dreams a little bit more.
well, yeah.
What's up?
Can I give like a quick summary of what we've talked about
Sure.
so far?
Yeah.
So dreams have a naturalistic cause
Mhm.
and a naturalistic purpose. Dreams are presented in the Bible sometimes as God revealing truth to his people.
Mhm.
In the New Testament, dreams mean something else than they do in the Old Testament, because in the New Testament, we have the revelation of God, specifically now that we're past the canonization of the text. We have the revelation, so it won't be the dreams won't disagree with what God has revealed in the Bible.
Yes.
The spirit is not one of contradiction.
Yes.
Yep.
So you won't get new information. If you're getting new information, wasn't from God. And then also, they are confusing. They are weird. You should pray about them, read the Bible to understand them, and talk to your pastor and fellow Christians.
Yeah.
I concur.
Yeah, because what you're looking for is some kind of gift of interpretation or discernment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you're confused that you don't understand it, maybe someone else in the body of Christ who's been given the gifts of discernment or interpretation
Yeah.
could help you with that, in the same way that Pharaoh and his servants weren't able to figure it out. So Joseph was brought.
Yeah.
So Daniel was brought. So
Cool. You think we've covered that one?
Oh, yeah.
I hope so.
if God has sent you a message, it won't go unread. Like it will be.
It'll be something.
There is a study that has been done and can be done by people on, well, the biblical theology of dreams in the Bible, but just how does that work? What context of the Old Testament come in with? Because people don't really dream very often in the New Testament. I think we're going through Acts as right now, not literally right now, but does Peter have a? It is Peter has a
far more
dream,
common,
right?
Yeah.
Visions are
Is
far,
a vision
far more
or
common,
it's not a dream?
as far as I'm aware.
I don't think it's a dream.
Are you holding a Bible right now?
I thought it was a dream, but that might just be me.
Do you want me to
I
look up
think it's a
every
vision.
time Peter has a vision in Acts?
No, I was just
No,
going to ask
with-
if in Acts that passage with the
For
animals.
Cornelius.
No,
and
it is a
animals.
vision.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
It's while he's doing his daily prayers.
beautiful.
It's a vision.
Okay.
Thanks for the confirmation.
No
Yeah,
problem.
thank you.
I found this sick burn of Pentecostals on the internet. Goes, imagine what Acts 2 could have been like if they'd had lasers and fog machines. Which I think is awesome. Also, I think Tongues of Fire is like pretty on brand.
Yeah, Tongues of Fire is the lasers, and then the wind is the fog machines, right?
Here's the thing. It would be wild in first century Jerusalem. They had lasers and fog machine coming out.
Yeah.
coming out of the
Yeah, but they
strip.
couldn't plug it
We're
in.
completely missing the point that the fog machines are meant to replace the They're the presence of God imitators, like in the temple had the pillar of cloud.
It is a theophany machine.
Yeah. It's
So I would argue that
make theophany.
the symbolism of cathedrals is replaced by the presence of the spirit being represented by lasers. It's bad, isn't it?
That's
hurts.
funny. No, I love it. That's
It's
great.
pretty good.
It hurts.
Because here's the thing.
Is it better?
If there is a
Absolutely.
charismatic
If it's new,
movement-
it's better.
well, the Colts coming in and swinging with this one.
please defend this
If
position.
there's a
won't.
seeking after this hype that happened with Acts 2, you'd want to get the visuals right.
Yo, I got to use the lingo.
Got the hazers and the lasers popping off at the Pentecostal church. Tell me you wouldn't go at least inside of the church to see what's happening. And then say, no, these people are drunk. And
Hey, that means that, as we covered in our Acts
Honestly,
episode, that's not good.
they would lie.
What?
Josh is
Sorry,
having a
I
thought
had
in
a
real
thought
time.
in
real time in the
Thought
church
real
episode.
time. Metaturt.
Is the Pharisees see? I know I'm already wrong, but I'm just going to present this idea. There is a funny similarity between Pharisees going to the disciples and going, "Are these guys drunk?" No, they're speaking in tongues. Versus everyone else who doesn't like concert worship, confusing it with concerts.
It
What?
can be. Can be.
I like that.
I'm going to
Because
say
people will come
I
to
say
a
most concert type.
because like
worship is-
Orthodox and Catholics will see the more animated
Contemporary.
Protestant worship. Yeah. And they'll go, it's just a concert. It's just a rock concert. They're just trying to, right? Like they're getting praised like somebody on a stage.
Mhm.
It's about them. They have a green room. They wear specific outfits for being on stage that you wouldn't just normally wear.
Right.
The whole thing, there's lights, there's a backdrop with like a moving thing and lyrics. Like it's a concert. Sometimes they have flames. And it's just like the idea of them
Sometimes
confusing.
they have flames.
True.
Oh, my one
the
church has
pyrotechnics.
flames.
You know what?
I've
love
seen
it.
pyrotechnics before. They're awesome.
In church?
in like mega
And a king
churches.
of
in
country
big
concert, yeah.
churches. Yeah.
So like, is that confusion with something that is worldly a problem the same way?
No,
Like-
because a lot of the times I agree.
That's not an argument. Even though
I'm not Catholic.
Even though I agree. Is that answer your question?
It's not really a question, really.
Okay.
More of a
Okay,
observation.
One very quick question to Josh.
Yes.
You said that the fog machines are meant to imitate the presence of God. Is that true? Is that?
There's
I don't
no
think
way.
that's true.
There's no way that
There's
somebody
no way
would have
that's
thought of
true.
that.
But the idea of having
It's
haze, of
mood
having
setting, right?
clouds, yes. But it's funny that in our sanctuary, we decided in the times of worship that we would have a pillar of cloud
I mean, yeah, that's true. That's true.
and the marker of the presence of God in the temple as this was the temple versus not the temple.
Next time someone-
was that
Theophany on
gosh.
demand.
Theophany on demand.
Theophany. See, I could do what they couldn't do. I could
That
just
sounds
do it more
awesome.
No, it's a little bit of blasphemy.
If it's
I mean,
the
if you
case
believe
that's what
that,
they're
then
trying to
yeah.
do.
Yeah,
I don't think they
yeah.
believe.
So I'm going to bring up that fog machines are representative of the infilling of the temple. Next time someone brings up, well, they got
What?
fog machines and glitter cannons
And you can-
stuff.
it's like incense.
Yeah.
Yes, you can make the same argument that incense and the
Oh, my.
censer is the, is the
yeah,
attempt
actually,
to
I
have
don't
the
disagree with
presence
that. Yeah. Not the
Yeah.
presence of God, but for the mood filling.
What's
But-
in your incense? Water and glycerin.
Well, and sometimes as they
Marijuana.
found some marijuana, some THC,
LSD.
not
Maybe where you went.
That's what they found in some incense.
Yeah.
That the medieval incense
Yeah.
burners in the medieval church.
Ooh.
Not much though. It's not like they were just
no, it's just enough to make the refraction of light and the pictures to come alive on the stained glass.
Yeah. Well, no, not even that. Just
It's kind of awesome.
whatever.
It makes the light shine a little better.
It's like chemical VR.
I will
Anyways,
say-
let's keep
God
going.
made all things, and
No,
we're supposed
now you're
to,
making the argument
No,
that
You're making the
drugs
magic
are from
mushrooms
God.
argument.
Now you're just
Anyway,
making the Joe Rogan argument.
I will say that being on LSD and going to a Catholic cathedral
it would be
will
awesome.
either be the best experience of your life or the absolute worst experience.
It just depends on
'Cause you
what's the
feel the
first
ju-
thing you look at.
Yeah, do you feel the presence of God or the judgment of God?
Well, do you see the light and like the beauty and you go, Or is it you accidentally look at the icon of Michael fighting Satan,
Yeah.
and then suddenly that comes alive in your eyes?
And the doom music starts, and you're like, Crusade. Anyway,
And all the statues are trying to welcome you. Anyways,
Oh, that's a wild history.
Carrie, next question.
The Crusades.
The Crusades as
guys, I got
everybody
a
was just
couple. I actually
tripping.
over
Yeah, continue.
rarely I over prepare, and this one I over prepared on. So there's a couple that I'm like, okay, what are your thoughts on Freemasonry? No, I love the way this question is phrased.
Freemasonry.
What are your thoughts on Freemasonry or Masonry? Thank you.
Well, here's the thing.
Masonry is just like a normal job.
Everything, I think people should be paid the fair wage of their labor.
Yeah. So you're only going to comment on the Masons.
Can I
part of
no,
it.
Freemasons.
Oh,
It
Socialists.
doesn't allow them to support their families
Can I
if they're just doing the work for free.
can I make
fair
the
enough.
I know what he's saying. So he's not referring to Masons. He's referring to the Masonic order.
Yeah.
So
Masonic
sometimes they are
lodge.
referred to as just Masons.
Yeah.
So
So I
But
want
also
to
they were
distinguish
Masons.
between like early or late medieval
Yeah.
Freemasons and like everything after that, because it started, if I'm remembering it correctly, it started as an order of basically a bunch of non really Catholic people coming together and being like, hey, let's share information with the Jews, the Muslims, Christians, and non-Christians, like getting all these ideas together and then talking about it. More of a philosophical order of debating ideas.
it did start out at the Guild
Very
of
liberal,
Masons, though.
yeah, very liberal for the time.
That's not even clear. That I think the origins of Freemasonry are null and void because the whole point is they don't want you to know how it started and they want you to think they built the pyramids. That's it. Like, it's awesome. I'm there. I love it.
No, because the argument is that the reason they share stuff with Kabbalistic symbolism is the argument that they're not, the Freemasons are the continuation of the Kabbalistic tradition.
The what?
The Cabal. It's a form of Jewish mysticism. I met someone who studied it the other day. Actually, super interesting
and that
conversation.
the Kabbalism came from Egypt as well. The branch of Jewish mysticism which was in Egypt with that
The Essenes.
no, there's a
The Second Temple.
the second temple in Egypt where they worshipped the god
Right.
Yoho, which was just a variation of Yahweh.
Hmm.
And so
Very interesting. Was around during Jesus' time.
yes, and they would argue that again that those people, the Kabbalistic group, got a lot of their imagery and symbolism and discussion from the Egyptians that lived there that built the pyramids and weird mysticism in Egypt. And so there's this long connection from Egypt
Jeez
to
Louise.
Judaism to European Freemason to European Mason guilds to now.
Okay.
Modern, this is my assessment. I think Joel and I have disagreed on this. Modern Freemasonry, I think, is just syncretistic Gnosticism with a deist bend.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with that.
I disagree. I think that the idea that it's majority religious is false. I think that there are requirements. You have to be a monotheist. You have to be, this, that, and the other thing. You do have to believe certain things, but then it's kind of done.
That would just be deist,
Yeah,
not very religious.
Yeah.
But it's
I
that's what I
both-
mean by deist bend.
I go leaning towards the Gnostic idea because, especially after like the founding of like the first 100 years of the Freemasons being a thing, they started turning very Gnostic.
Well, they're hidden knowledge for sure, 100%. They're not quite as spiritual as Gnostics would
Sure.
be.
Yeah.
They don't hate
Not
physical reality as much as
not directly. Yeah.
what can be found in most Gnostic communities.
They're little G Gnostic, not big G Gnostic.
Yeah.
So the reason I brought this up, little G Gnostic. That's
Caleb liked that one.
5 people are gonna get that.
That's good. Yeah, the reason I brought it up was because Josh had an interesting take on brotherhoods. You remember when we talked
what?
about that?
Oh, because
while
I've
ago?
been to 2 Freemason meetings.
Oh no, I
You have been?
didn't know that.
Did you buy that ring that you had an option to? Oh. What?
Oh, you're not allowed to talk about something like that?
No, you're not.
So
Who cares? I'm not a Freemason.
yeah.
The problem
That's
is
the
when
problem.
they find out.
What, they're gonna come after me?
Coming
Us.
after you? Why? Who
At
cares?
least someone will listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
So
If I get shut down by the Freemasons, I'm going to wear that as a badge of honor. not as a
yes,
shame.
of course. No, but it's just we'll get there eventually.
What?
No, so a family friend of ours, the father is a master mason, and their
This is
daughter
not
was
what
in
I thought
Job's
you were gonna talk
daughters.
about.
Uh-huh.
We got invited to go to one of their daughters in Job's daughters level up.
Nice.
So
Uh-huh.
in
you get to
Langley,
wear the
where the
red hoods?
Eureka Hall is,
Yep.
it was like a profession of faith.
please.
We've talked about Summit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but you're getting more specific, more and more specific.
It could be. It could. There are multiple
Langley,
cities.
Virginia. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
Anyway, continue on this cult story question mark?
Yes. So it's
Cult
like
talk.
their profession of faith. It's like getting up to the top level. And you can only be a Job's daughter if you are the daughter of a master mason. Anyways, it's a nothing burger. Nothing happens, but
they
there
called-
were 2 grandmasters there.
Did you say they're called Job's daughters?
Yes.
Yep.
Why would I ever want to be a Job's daughter or son? That sounds like the worst possible thing.
Tornado ride.
Well, it depends on which of Job's daughters you're talking about. The ones before or after.
That's true.
So,
Question: why go, Josh?
so
Why not?
Cult.
yes. It honestly, I didn't think about it at the time.
I'm not saying one way
Yeah.
or the other. I'm just like,
Yeah. I'm never going again.
But if you do, like, let me know.
No, it isn't nothing. So it wasn't true Freemasons. It was it's their youth program,
Nice.
which is the equivalent. And so, yeah, it's wild. You see all the symbolism. The whole time I'm going, that's not true.
And that's why
not
you're a
true.
Freemason now.
No,
I see.
I'm not.
Explains a lot.
Specifically, no. They try
Explains the symbols on the
two
walls.
kids tried to convert me, and I said, no way in hell.
no way. That's hell.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
And that person, since the daughter is no longer a part and has gotten away. And it was mostly because,
Have they come to the church?
yeah, like I mean, yeah. And so that's the problem with Freemasons is
What?
that there are Freemasons that are Christians
Quote unquote.
because they passed the test of being a monotheist and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But churches generally have a problem with Freemasons.
So would Corinthians.
Yes. Because you're not supposed to be a part of another brotherhood.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it goes a little beyond that.
Yes.
But to all, like, there are a lot of people out there who claim that Freemasonry is basically just like a club.
Yeah.
Like people who are Masons. I'm very heavily skeptical of anything Freemason.
Absolutely. You should
Anything. I love looking at churches and seeing whether or not they're built by Freemasons, though.
be. Yes.
It happens a lot.
The church in Barkerville has a Freemason plaque on
The
it.
church I got married in had Freemason symbols on the
Well,
walls.
especially churches that find their origin in in the 19th and 20th century.
Well, and
Especially in the New World.
that lends to the idea that they were behind a lot of the stuff in more
The New World.
conspiratorial books and novels and in conspiracy theories is because as builders, so to speak,
They're like the
as
Illuminati.
Masons, they were a part of a lot of construction.
Well, and they do it for free. Sorry.
Yeah. And they wear gloves, so you don't know if they're a king or not.
Oh my gosh, it took me
Yes.
this long to get the joke. Jeez Louise. Freemasons, I get it.
It was
So
pretty low level.
yeah, so there was 2
My fault.
grandmasters there. You saw them wearing all the symbolism, and like you see the carryovers from Egyptian Kabbalistic thinking and stuff like that, and it's bad. It's bad. I hate the syncretism.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So the official Sacred Saints position on Freemasonry is we have cool rings now, and so don't talk to us about it.
No, boo, bad, cult. Don't separate yourself from Christ.
No,
Yeah.
a person that was a Mason, this person, may be giving me a Freemason relic that they
I'm sorry,
obtained.
what?
So
Freemasons have relics?
yes, and this one is 300 years old.
Holy moly.
So
Is it the staff that Moses used to turn into a snake?
How old do you think the Earth is? 'Cause
Time is relative, okay?
Can we move on?
so fast. How old do you think the Earth is?
5.
Five? 5 units of measurement.
Time. 5
This
times.
is the staff Moses used. It's over 5 years old.
That's not wrong. It would be.
It would be technically over 5 years.
Unless, no, I'm not going to say that.
Anyways,
Simulation
I'll be
theory.
trying to decipher this object when I obtain it.
So, Josh and I have been spitballing some new ideas for biblically accurate series.
Mhm.
So, I'd like to extend that ask to anyone who's still listening. If you have things that you want Josh and I to cover that are on the more conspiracy side, even if you want a whole episode on Freemasons, I'd try it.
Josh and Joe.
Is
What?
it actually just you two?
No, you guys probably will be part of it. I'm not sure. We haven't.
Me and Caleb
talked
talk
about
about
that.
Freemasonry.
No.
It's just. I think it's.
You guys can have biblically inaccurate.
Yeah, inaccurate.
Where you guys fight for the position.
That's funnier.
Well,
It's funnier.
I think for my own sanity, sometimes I might not show up, but sometimes I will want to.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's brings us through the turt. You know, throw some turt on the grave.
What?
I don't know. Trying to
We
think of a
even-
good catchphrase for turt.
We even had some thoughts of our own in real time.
I had
Yeah.
a thought. I don't know about that.
Turt and a half show. No, that's nothing. That's another good one.
Continue.
Turtle recall.
I love that movie.
Which one? The Arnold Schwarzenegger one?
Yeah.
Dirty dancing.
Anyway, Caleb's
Anyways,
done.
Are you? What do we do on social media?
Do we?
Yeah, if you'd like to check out what we're doing online, check out secondratesaints.com. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can email us at secondratesaints@gmail.com or check out our chat feature on the website or just comment on the YouTube video. Yeah. I'm still thinking turd of the century, maybe?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, we'll go.
There are more turd episodes.
Yeah.
There are.
Turton
On our-
death.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah?
Right by your
Turtle.
foot, there's the button that
Turt.
ends the recording.
Yeah, but I like it when we devolve.
Yep. And yep.
We have to
That's
evolve.
cool.
Turtle recall.
We can always edit this out,
I
right?
could
I'm saying
stand-
Turtle Rico.
I'm twice as far away from it as you, but I think I could make it.
I'll
and
body
turn
block
this-
you.
Sorry, audience members, count the amount of times that Caleb says absolutely nothing because he doesn't want to dignify someone saying something with a laugh.
It is one of the things that I do. I realize silence speaks volumes.
It's very fun.
Yeah, when people are like,
Anyway.
"Ain't that funny?" and you're like. So anyway,
Yeah.
Also donate to us to help us afford new equipment. Some of our equipment here is great, but it's always nice to get new arms because Josh is holding the microphone because we're down for one.
Hopefully, it makes us easier to listen to.
Yeah,
Because I currently don't have arms.
Josh is well, he's not armed, because we're not in the States.
Do you want to? Yeah, okay, I've got a funny joke about that. There's a thing in where we live called the MCC sale, which is like the Mennonite Christian community for where they donate and stuff to other places through thrift stores and stuff like that. And they have a giant thing called the MCC sale. And everybody that volunteers there, Mennonites are known for being pacifists. They wear tank tops that say, "This is how Mennonites bear arms."
Okay, that's not bad. Actually.
That's pretty funny.
End of the podcast.
End of the podcast.
That's funny. You know what I was thinking about today? My birthday is on June 23rd, right?
Yeah.
That's so far away from Labor Day.
What? I get the joke. It's just really stupid.